"This table's for family, Rachel. Go find a spot outside." The words landed like a slap, and the laughter that followed cut louder than the chandeliers. The jazz on the speakers turned into background static. The clink of silverware sounded too bright. I felt every eye like heat on my back. My throat tightened, but I didn't let them see it. That was the night everything changed, not just how they saw me, but how I saw myself. Before I tell you what happened next, let me ask you something. Have you ever been humiliated by your own family? Have you ever smiled through it just to keep your dignity? If yes, you'll understand exactly what I felt that night. And before we dive in, tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and if you've ever been through something like this. And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe, because what you're about to hear isn't just a story. It's a lesson in loyalty, betrayal, and the kind of justice that doesn't need a courtroom. My name is Rachel Miller, and this happened in Columbus, Ohio. My family owned Miller & Sons Construction, a company built by my grandfather, now run by my cousin Jeremy. Jeremy ran Miller & Sons, the family crown. He loved showing who held the keys, contracts, charity panels, the town's favorite donors. He was rich, charming, and cruel in ways that money hides. When the invitation came for his birthday dinner, I almost didn't go. But my mother begged. "They're still your family," she said. "Show them you're doing okay." So I did. I ironed my best blue dress, saved up for a cab, and walked into the Hearth and Vine. The kind of restaurant where the waiters whisper and the glasses cost more than your weekly groceries. The chandeliers glowed like melted gold. The table stretched long, full of laughter and wine and people who once knew me. There was one empty seat at the very end. But as I reached for it, Jeremy looked up, that same smug grin I'd grown up with. "Sorry, Rachel," he said. "This table's for family. There's a small one near the bar. Maybe try there." The laughter that followed wasn't the kind you could laugh along with. It was sharp, cruel. My aunt covered her mouth with a napkin to hide her giggle. My brother looked down. My own mother whispered, "Just let it go." I wanted to say something, anything, but I didn't trust my voice not to break. So I smiled, nodded, and walked toward the smaller table near the bar. I sat down alone. The waiter brought me a coffee, maybe out of pity. I wrapped my fingers around it, more for warmth than taste. Then came the final blow. The waiter pushed a long receipt across the table. "Your bill, ma'am." $17.45. Jeremy had told him to put it on my tab. Private humiliation, served publicly. People turned their heads. A few whispered. I heard someone snicker, "Guess diner pay doesn't cover family dinners." My chest burned, but I stayed still. I took a slow sip of my coffee, the bitterness cutting through my throat. Then I pushed the receipt back toward the waiter. "You might want to hand that to the right person," I said calmly. "I don't pay for people who call me a stranger." Jeremy laughed, loud, forced, trying to make it seem like a joke. "Come on, Rach, lighten up. It's just a bit of fun." But his voice cracked when I didn't react. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I folded my coat, slid my bag over my shoulder, and stood. "You're right," I said, voice low but steady. "This table is for family. I'll sit at mine." I walked out into the cold while their laughter chased me down the block. Snow was falling, soft, relentless, almost poetic. The flakes hit my face like tiny accusations. And under the glow of the streetlight, I whispered, "One day you'll remember this." Then, a flicker of white in the folder still in my hand. A tiny logo printed at the bottom, Miller & Sons, trust account or 214. My stomach dropped. Trust accounts aren't for dinner tabs. They're for restricted company funds. That number shouldn't have existed on a birthday bill. Pause. What would you do if you found company money paying for your humiliation? Tell me below. Would you confront them or build the evidence? I didn't go home to cry. I went home to plan. On the kitchen table, I laid the bill under a lamp and stared at 214 until it stopped, looking like a number, and started looking like a map. They thought my leaving was the end. It was the beginning. I didn't have a plan yet, only a promise. And promises, when fueled by patience, become dangerous. I didn't sleep that night. That receipt, the one from the dinner, sat under my lamp like evidence. Trust account number 214. 10 numbers that didn't belong on a restaurant bill. By sunrise, the decision was already made. If they could use company money to fund my humiliation, what else were they hiding? But Jeremy wasn't someone you accused without proof. He ran Miller & Sons, and half the town danced to that tune. Power, politics, donations, he held it all. I needed evidence, not emotion. So I called Morgan, a friend from accounting, smart, cautious, and more importantly, former Miller & Sons employee. "You remember that accounting class you nearly failed?" I asked. "Hard to forget," she said. "Why?" "Because I think someone's rewriting the company books." We met at an old diner off Route 17, one of those places where the waitress knows when not to listen. Morgan slid into the booth, laptop tucked under her arm. "Okay," she said, "show me." I handed her the receipt. Her brow furrowed. "This isn't a normal expense," she muttered. "Trust accounts aren't for dinners. They're restricted funds." She tapped a few keys. "I still have the snapshots I downloaded before I left." "My insurance," she said quietly. "Plus, an old friend in audit still owes me a favor. I can pull a mirror copy, but if someone's watching, it'll get flagged." A few minutes later, her screen flickered to life. "Here," she whispered. "Account 214, no project tag. No vendor, just movement." I leaned closer. "Movement?" $500,000 moved through it. Small transfers, cash pulls, all timed to avoid reporting triggers. The word fraud wasn't said. It didn't need to be. It hung there between us, heavy and real. I started my own log that night. Every transfer, every time the number 214 appeared. And once, just once, a name surfaced in the data. An old employee rumored to have threatened a whistleblower suit before disappearing 2 years ago. If Knox was still out there, maybe I wasn't the only one watching. 3 weeks later, an envelope slid through my mail slot. No return address, no note. Inside, 3 printed bank slips, each labeled Personal Entertainment, Jeremy Miller, all from Trust Account number 214. My hands trembled. Whoever sent it wanted me to see. I looked out the window, quiet street, melting snow, and there it was. A black sedan parked across the road, tinted windows, engine idling. "Morgan," I whispered into the phone. "Did you send me something?" "No. Why?" "Because someone else just did." The car pulled away without headlights, and in that instant, the humiliation turned into purpose. Jeremy's corruption wasn't just personal. It was poisoning everything my grandfather built. "Morgan," I said, "we're getting inside." "There are legal ways," she warned. "And there are fast ways." "The legal route will take months," I said. "By then, they'll bury everything." She exhaled. "Then we do it clean and quick. No damage, no footprints. Just proof. They used company money to humiliate me. Now I'd use their company to destroy them." Next, the night we slipped into Miller & Sons headquarters. No weapons, no masks. Just 2 women, a flashlight, and everything to lose. The sky was ink black when we arrived. The air so cold it felt like it could shatter. We parked 2 blocks from Miller & Sons. The building looked asleep. Lights dim, flags still. Morgan hesitated near the service entrance. She whispered something, maybe a name, and a quiet click answered. We slipped inside like ghosts. The marble floor gleamed under the emergency lights. Every step echoed like a countdown. We moved through the corridor until we reached accounting. Morgan powered up a terminal, fingers flying. "They think deleting files erases history," she said. "But backups remember everything." A file appeared, 214, Reconciliation. She hesitated. "Once I open this, there's no going back." "We already crossed that line the night they put my name on a dinner bill," I said. Click. Rows of numbers filled the screen. Transfers to shell companies, invoices from fake vendors. The total, 4.7 million. I snapped photos of every page. Each flash felt like thunder. Then, a phone buzzed in the hallway. A man's voice followed. Security log flagged movement. Then another voice I'd know anywhere. Jeremy. He stepped into view, calm as ever. Morgan, Rachel, I should have guessed. Loyalty never did pay enough, huh? I felt my throat tighten. "You used company money to humiliate me," I said. "Company money?" He scoffed. "Family money. My money. Then you won't mind if I show the town how generous you've been." His smirk faltered. Morgan hit the fire alarm. The shriek shattered the silence. Sprinklers hissed. Alarms blared red. We ran, not in panic, in purpose, because every drop of water hitting that office was washing away their control. By the time we reached the street, the night sky glowed red from the alarm lights. "He saw us," Morgan panted. "Good," I said. "Now he knows who's coming." At dawn, the headlines exploded. Miller & Sons under investigation for trust fund misuse. Jeremy called it a misunderstanding. But while the sprinklers were still running, Morgan had already mirrored the files to an encrypted drop, timed for 3 reporters' inboxes at sunrise. By morning, the whole town was reading the truth. But power doesn't fall quietly. That evening, I found my car keyed, mailbox pried open. Morgan got a silent phone call, just breathing, then click. That same black sedan idled by my window again. I didn't flinch this time. "I'm not afraid of you anymore," I whispered. Because if silence protects thieves, then noise, the kind that can't be deleted, is the last thing they'll ever buy. Truth doesn't need protection. It only needs witnesses. Where the town chooses sides, loyalty collapses. And Jeremy learns that some legacies burn brighter in ruin than in wealth. The morning the story broke, the whole town didn't wake up. It snapped awake. Front page headlines, talk radio, flashing local news tickers. And right in the center of it all, Jeremy Miller, face tense beneath a headline that read, like CEO under investigation for misuse of corporate funds. I sat in a corner booth at the diner, same one where Morgan and I had met weeks earlier. The newspaper beside my coffee smelled of ink and justice. But this time, it wasn't rumor. It was real. The DA had the copies we'd leaked, plus an anonymous tip from a former auditor. And he'd already opened a forensic audit. This wasn't gossip. It was evidence on someone else's desk. On the diner TV, Jeremy faced a storm of cameras. "All accusations are baseless," he said tightly. "We're cooperating fully. Miller & Sons remains a pillar of this community." Pillar. Funny word for something built on stolen trust accounts. The waitress, silver hair, soft eyes, refilled my cup. "Good for whoever finally stood up to him," she murmured. She didn't know it was me, but her words landed anyway. By noon, the courthouse steps were a stage. Reporters lined the street. Employees huddled in coats, whispering. Morgan and I stood near the back, the cold wind slicing between us. The DA's voice cut through the crowd. "After reviewing internal financial records, we are filing charges for embezzlement, falsification of trust accounts, and corporate fraud against Jeremy Miller." Cameras flashed. Gasps rippled. Jeremy's face went pale. He scanned the crowd, maybe looking for me. When our eyes met, I didn't flinch. I didn't gloat. Just one calm nod, the kind that says, "You should have treated people better." That evening, my phone buzzed. Jeremy's name lit the screen. I almost ignored it. But curiosity won. His voice was smaller than I remembered. "You cost me everything," he said. "You started by costing other people everything," I replied. "Tonight the town saw it. That's not ruin, that's accountability." He said nothing, and hung up. He never called again. Weeks passed. The DA froze his assets. The board resigned. Cranes took the gold letters down. One by one, Miller & Sons falling like an accusation. Inside, investigators boxed files and tagged computers. Outside, former employees waited anxiously, and Morgan made sure they were paid through the frozen payroll account. "You did the hard part," she told me, handing over a folder. "I just did the accounting." "Then we rebuild, and properly," I said. A month later, we stood in front of the old building. A "For Lease" banner stretched across the columns like a bandage that wouldn't heal. Morgan slipped a small envelope from her coat. "Settlement check," she said quietly. "They want it closed." I didn't even look at the amount. I tore it in half, folded both pieces, and placed them on the railing. "Some things," I said, "aren't for sale." Morgan smiled. "Guess that's why it worked." That night, I sat by my window. Same streetlight. Same quiet, but no black sedan parked across the road. The air felt cleaner, lighter. I whispered, "Dad, Grandpa, it's over. I didn't fight for revenge. I fought for our name. And for the first time in months, I slept, not out of exhaustion, but peace." When a family betrays you, it changes you. But when you rise without hate, only truth, it rebuilds you stronger than their legacy ever could. They said that table was for family. Turns out family is what you make it. If you've ever been pushed out and came back stronger, tell me below. And if you believe truth always wins, subscribe for more stories where it does.